Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a bill to reverse a controversial Florida law blocking wrongful death lawsuits is before the Florida legislature. We look at why families are advocating for the change and the political headwinds ahead. Later in the program, the owner of the signature V-Spot food truck celebrates a grand reopening after recovering from a devastating tragedy. But first, it's a law few know about until a loved one dies of medical malpractice. Sometimes it's called the free kill law, and it prevents adult children or the parents of adult children from suing in cases of medical malpractice. But there is pressure building to abolish this law. Joining me today are two advocates who've had to live with the realities of this law. Here in studio, Cindy Jenkins. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning.
And in just a minute, we're going to be joined via video by Sabrina Davis. But Cindy, I want to start with you. You drove here after testifying in Tallahassee yesterday, and you did that on the anniversary of your daughter's death.
I did.
In 2023. Tell us about Taylor.
Taylor was just a ray of sunlight. She was just such a gift. I couldn't have asked to be blessed with a better daughter. She came into the world just so curious, soaking in life, super smart. Couldn't have been easier to parent her. She ended up graduating from high school here locally, Fleming Island High School, with an advanced international certificate of education. Went to the University of South Florida, graduated from there at 20 years old. Called me up and said, "Mom, I don't really want to go get a job in finance. I think I want to travel the world." So she did. She got a job as a flight attendant and went everywhere. And in the year prior to this happening, she'd met the love of her life, and they were planning their entire future. They were going to get engaged. And then I got a call a year ago yesterday.
So sorry. I know this is a very difficult topic to discuss. She was a beautiful young woman. She was working as a flight attendant. She's 25 years old.
She had just turned 25. Her birthday was New Year's Eve. So she'd been 25 for 2.5 months before she was rear-ended at a red light and rushed to the closest hospital, where she was the victim of reckless negligence.
So she was seated at a red light. She was wearing her seatbelt. Somebody came up at a very high rate of speed and rear-ended her. And initially, doctors diagnosed her with some sort of traumatic brain injury. Is that right?
That's right. So they told us she had a brain injury that they weren't sure she would make it, that it was the type of brain injury that would cause her brain to swell, and then her brainstem would likely herniate into her spinal column. And I just kept saying, "Well, have you had her to surgery?" I didn't get to Orlando until about 7 hours after she'd gotten to the hospital, or after I got the call. So they're telling me about this, and I'm saying, "Has she been to the operating room?" "No, we don't operate in these cases." And I'm thinking, what in the world? So then I said, "Well, if you think her brain is herniating into her spinal column, can you get her into CT imaging and see what's going on?" "No, it wouldn't change what we're doing to treat her." So they essentially just left her laying there for hours and hours. People began flocking in from all over the place. And all over. Brett, the love of her life, got on the first plane, flew down. He was there by her side as well. And all of us were going, nothing was adding up. We kept saying, we feel like we've stepped into the twilight zone. And I now know what happened. I was able to pay for a private autopsy. The autopsy prompted the medical examiner to change the cause of death on her death certificate.
Because the initial cause of death was this brain injury.
That's what they said.
Okay.
They're like, "Oh yeah, this brain injury killed her." The subsequent set of CT scanning showed that it didn't exist, so they knew that didn't exist. I had to contact the medical examiner and say, "I've paid for a private autopsy, and the cause of death you've listed does not exist." So they ended up changing her cause of death to a torn pelvic artery. The physicians I've had look at her record believe the hospital tore the artery while placing a line, because that artery is so well protected, and she didn't have a pelvic fracture or anything. So one of them said, "I've been doing this 35 years. I'm not saying there's not a first time for everything, but I've never seen this artery be torn without some type of fracture or unless the hospital accidentally tore it placing a line.
So you were in Tallahassee, as we said. Why was it important for you to speak directly to lawmakers about your daughter?
I want them to see that this is not as rare as they may think, and that lives are being impacted, that our rights are being stripped away. Me speaking to these lawmakers will never change anything for my family. We will never have justice, but I don't want other people to ever live this reality. I shouldn't be living it, and I don't want anyone else to ever live it.
I think we're now joined by Sabrina Davis via video. And Sabrina, this is an issue that you have actually appeared on this program before to discuss. You were on this show in December 2023. You were at that time advocating for legislation as you are now to overturn this law. Um, Tell us a little bit about how you first got involved. Remind us about your father, Keith.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on today. Yes, my dad, a 62-year-old veteran of the Navy, went to a hospital in Tampa for knee pain, and 5 days later, he was dead. So I had an autopsy done, and they determined that my dad had a 9-inch long blood clot in his leg that went to his chest and caused a massive saddle pulmonary thromboembolism. So that autopsy doctor actually told me that this doctor is a threat to the patients and something needed to be done. So I started calling attorneys and they were asking me, is my dad married and how old am I? And none of them were able to help me. So I went to the eighth attorney that I contacted, and she actually said, "You have a lot of energy, and you need to put that where you can make a difference." And I'm like, "How? How do you make a difference in this?" It's like I can't even believe it's true. And she's like, "You fight to change the law." And so I kind of just took that and ran with it. I feel like I've been running ever since. Um, and so here I am today, and that's my dad's story.
And Sabrina, we haven't gotten much into the weeds of this bill that would overturn the existing law. And we said this law is sometimes known as the free kill law because it basically means that people who are 25 or older can't seek damages for medical malpractice if their parents die from medical malpractice, and that people can't seek damages if they have children that are 25 and older and childless, which was the case with Taylor, Cindy's daughter. And so this proposal that is currently being championed by our local Senator Clay Yarborough would basically overturn this 30-year-old law and reverse that. Is that right?
That is right. And I'm so thankful for Senator Yarborough. I think he has a heart of gold and he's doing an amazing job. I have no doubt that he's taking so much backlash from opposition about this. But I believe he's a strong man and he walks by his faith and he sticks to it. And that, I feel really good about this session.
So this is the only state, Cindy, that has this law. Florida is unique in the country. It applies to people who live here. It applies to tourists as well. And it often comes as a real shock to families who are already going through some very difficult times.
Correct. We are the only state in the United States of America that has a law that carves out a specific group of people and completely violates two of their rights under the United States Constitution.
The current law is criticized for a few reasons, and we heard these complaints yesterday and in previous committee meetings where they're hearing this proposed bill. They say that it discriminates based on marital status. It
Mhm.
discriminates based on someone's parental status, whether or not they have kids, that it discriminates against people with special needs, who are widowed, who are elderly, and those without family members. Some of the people who are most vulnerable in society, but basically prevents people who are their family members, their loved ones, from suing.
Mhm.
Um, why is it important to be able to sue?
Because the Department of Health and Agency for Healthcare Administration are really grossly failing all of us. If they were doing what they were created to do, which is to be the regulating agencies for doctors and hospitals, we wouldn't have this wouldn't be an issue. We would have very safe healthcare in the state of Florida. Because they're so grossly failing, that's the reason for laws like this. There are many laws that protect negligent physicians in Florida that I've learned of. So it's really important that we have some form of accountability. The other thing is when you file a complaint with the Department of Health or the Agency for Healthcare Administration, they have the doctor and the hospital have their own attorneys. They it's like a secret closed door that they do everything behind. You don't have representation. You're not allowed to be there to tell your side of the story or have your experts explain what happened. It all happens behind closed doors. And Sabrina is a perfect example of when they actually find probable cause, the consequence doesn't even sting the doctors.
Yeah, and Sabrina, we should say in a lot of cases, without the civil legal system, people are just unable to bring a claim of some kind. You were prevented from bringing a claim for wrongful death, but you did bring your case to state regulators, and they did find the doctor in your case had committed malpractice, and they fined him, but not much.
That is correct. I went as far as I can go with this law being in place. Um, I've been told I'm one of the rare ones who actually got a finding from the Florida Department of Health that the doctor worked below the standard of care and committed medical malpractice. In these findings, the max fine that the physician can receive is $10,000. The doctor that did this to my dad got 7,500. So, not even the max, and this was death. So, also, the Agency for Healthcare Administration did find that the doctor worked below the standard of care and committed medical malpractice by not following the DVT protocol that they are supposed to follow. And they had 30 days to re educate their staff on blood clots. I mean, is that really accountability? The autopsy cost as much as almost as much as the fine that the doctor got. So, um, I don't see that as accountability. If so, I think it's very weak. There really is no reason to do better. And for that reason, we keep having these instances happen. And if we want to raise the standard of care, we have to start by holding them to a higher standard.
I want to bring in now Daryl Parrott. He is the father of Cameron Parrott. He is a St. Augustine resident. Daryl, you were also speaking in Tallahassee yesterday about your son, who you lost this last November. And I wanted to ask you about your testimony. You got cut off early, as did a lot of the speakers, because they ran short on time. But you want to talk about non-monetary reasons for wanting to bring a civil lawsuit or a wrongful death medical malpractice claim. Can you talk a little bit about why, other than money, someone might want to file a lawsuit?
Right. Well, so I rushed Cameron to the emergency room as any parent would in a medical emergency. He was coughing up blood. And in effect, he continued to deteriorate, and over about a 4-day period in the hospital, he ended up dying. And when we asked the surgeon, why you waited so long to perform surgery, it was a blood clot, just similar to Sabrina's. That's what they say. The surgeon said, I don't know, they called me at 2:00 today. He had been in their care for at least 36 hours. And so I'm just trying to find out why Cameron is dead. And I have no means of determining that. I have no way to find out what happened. They have no obligation to speak to me or talk to me or say anything. And in fact, what the surgeon said while we were processing the fact that he told us it's too late, he's going to die, those were the last words that the hospital has spoken to us. So, that I just need to know why, and I have no vehicle to find that information out. And they say that a parent losing a child is the hardest thing. Well, try doing it and not knowing why. Just a little more salt in this. So living seems harder than dying right now.
Daryl, so sorry. So sorry about Cameron. He really was a delightful man who worked by your side at your restaurant.
18 years, every day, virtually every day for 18 years, side by side. And then 4 days gone, and I have no reason. I don't know why. That's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah. Sabrina, I want to ask you about that. You obviously ran into this similar circumstance. I've heard the lawmakers who object to this proposal to overturn the law say that there's nothing stopping you from filing litigation. Can you bring a little clarity to kind of what the options are that are available and why some of them are limited by what kind of case an attorney will take?
Sure. So, even with this law in place, we can have access to the courts for economic damages, things like the autopsy that I paid for, after death medical expenses, and funeral costs. But when you add those costs up, it's just not enough for an attorney to take on the case, to get an expertise witness, to get the certificate of merit, to pursue it in a courtroom. And so therefore these cases are being overlooked. In my case, it was a little bit different because I did have someone who was willing to help me and to try to recover those things and give this hospital a chance to do the right thing. And they wanted to silence me. They agreed to pay me for the autopsy and the funeral cost, even though my dad was in the Navy. And if I stopped sharing my dad's story and where it happened. And I refused to do that because my dad taught me to speak up for what is right and against what is wrong. So, you know, it's for those reasons, it's just not enough when you carve out this section of people and say, oh, they still have the access. Well, then where do we have the access and how and who's going to pay for it? Because it's very expensive to get these cases in front of a judge. And it's very, Florida has some of the most strenuous pre-suit processes in America. So, for those reasons, there's really no access to the courts unless we repeal subsection 8.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about Florida's so-called free kill law and efforts by some lawmakers to overturn it. You can join our conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. I want to take a call from Peter on the South Side. Good morning, Peter. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. My question is, what was the rationale for passing this law in the first place? We're hearing a lot of people who are against it, but presumably people of goodwill in the Florida legislature thought that there was a good reason to have this law in place. What was the justification?
That's a very good reason, Peter. I think we can start by playing some comments that were made yesterday during this committee meeting by someone who represents the insurance industry. Let's take a listen.
And I know one of the arguments in favor of Senate Bill 734 is for patient safety, but the exact opposite is going to happen. If you increase medical malpractice costs for our hospitals, they'll have no choice but to reduce services and staff, which will lead to lower quality care, which will then lead to more medical malpractice claims. It's a vicious cycle.
So we should say, Cindy, this current pending bill is opposed by the Florida Hospital Association, the Florida Medical Association, the Florida Osteopathic Medical Association, the Florida Insurance Council, the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and Associated Industries of Florida, which is a major lobbying group in Florida. The argument is that this will raise costs for hospitals. They are working on incredibly tight margins. They cannot afford an increase in their medical malpractice insurance rates, which are already some of the highest in the country.
To that, I say that they're also some of the most profitable businesses in the country with some of the highest paid CEOs. Their CEOs make tens upon tens of millions per year. Essentially, what we were promised as Floridians when this law was passed in 1990 was never delivered. We were promised that if they were allowed to strip away two of our constitutional rights back then, equal protection and due process under the law, that it would help them to provide safer health care. So we're 35 years into this law. It's existed 10 years longer than my daughter had the opportunity to live, and we still have them giving the same narrative for which actual proof has never been provided.
So when it was initially passed in 1990, the argument was this is going to help Florida remain competitive in the medical field. We're going to be able to draw doctors here.
Mm.
We are not going to be scaring them away with unreasonably high medical malpractice premiums. That promise, as you say, it's not clear that those rates have gone down. In fact, they really have been, as I said, among the highest. So, but doctors do firmly, at least their lobbies support this.
Well, actually, not all doctors. We had a doctor speak yesterday who had no idea that this law even existed. She came over from Pensacola to Tallahassee to say that medical malpractice premiums were never an issue for her, have never been an issue, and that she did not know of this law, nor did she agree with it, because she wants, if somebody is a bad actor in her field, she wants them to be held accountable and not be allowed to continue to practice.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was an interesting comment, Sabrina, I thought, from that physician saying she was coming on behalf of a friend of hers who had suffered this same kind of loss. She said she was completely unaware that this law existed and that she believed that medical malpractice cases are important in holding doctors to account.
Yes, I was honored to have her there. It's really unfortunate that, her time was cut so short. Like she said, it leaves stains on the you know, medical boards across everywhere, affecting everyone, doctors in good and bad faith. So, her husband is a physician for the VA, and she is also a physician, and she was unaware of this. So, that just goes to show that when they say doctors are going to leave Florida, well, she said they're not going anywhere. So it's easy to sound like doctors are going to leave Florida and we're going to have high med mal rates and all of those things. But honestly, the argument that is so weak if we really listen to what's being said, because when it comes to human life, accountability is non-negotiable. And I've said that since day one. And, so they can be convincing, but I think at the end of the day, like Senator Broder said at the very end of the meeting, he really nailed it with this is about life, and, we need to do better.
We actually have a little bit of Senator Broder's commentary at the end of the meeting. Let's just take a listen to that right now.
One of the things that's unique to Florida is that we have the ability for physicians to post and go bare. You can just have a notice, say that you're not going to carry malpractice, and so that mitigates some of that economic burden. The other is that physicians can invoke arbitration. They don't have to go to a jury trial. That's unique to Florida, and so that mitigates some of your economic damages. And the last is that there's like half of all the other states have no caps on damages. They have hospitals. They are able to function. And so if they're able to do it, so should we. So the last question is, do we value life? And the answer is I do. So that's why I'll be up on the bill. Good job, Senator Yarborough.
So one vote of support there. And in fact, this bill has passed multiple committees now, 2 Senate committees with a favorable vote, a House subcommittee. It does have a couple more stops to make. I want to just take a call, if we can, though, briefly, from Joyce in Atlantic Beach. Good morning, Joyce. Go ahead.
Hi, my question is, if this legislation passes as written, would it be retroactive or only going forward, effective only going forward? Thanks.
It's a good question, Joyce. Cindy.
So that is an excellent question. It will not be retroactive. Those of us who have spent massive amounts of time trying to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else are unpaid. We don't get paid for doing this, nor will we ever benefit from this law changing, except that our hope is healthcare will become safer for everyone, including the family members that we have left. I do want to interject one thing regarding the legislators saying that doctors will flee the state of Florida if this law is repealed because medical malpractice premiums will be too high. Where are they going to go? To one of the other 49 states that doesn't have the law? Where are these doctors going to flee to? It just makes no sense.
There is some resistance, as we said, certainly from some representatives of various medical groups and insurance lobbies, but lawmakers are also somewhat resistant to this. I want to listen to something that Senator Gail Harrell had to say yesterday, and then Sabrina, I want to ask you about it.
And my heart goes out to every single case we heard. I absolutely hear you. But if you really want to put accountability into this bill, into the system, the Board of Medicine, ACA, is where we need to do that.
So Sabrina, she's talking about the Agency for Healthcare Administration. That is one of the regulatory agencies in Florida that can oversee the behavior, the actions of physicians. What do you say about leaving it to the regulatory agencies as opposed to trying to handle this through litigation?
So, you know, it's sad to say that this Senator Harrell is, she's very political, and her top campaign donations can be tracked online, and they're all from the doctors, companies, the hospitals, and so, you know, she's speaking regarding her campaign donations, unfortunately, instead of the people, our lives, our families' lives, and if ACA was doing their job and Department of Health was doing their job, which in my case, I'll say that they did, in my case was a rare case, like I've been told, that I don't know why she's opposed to changing the law. What is she nervous about? That was my question for her. Unfortunately, she got up and walked out of the room when I got up to speak. But if we rely on DOH and ACA to do the right thing, then I don't understand why we still have this carve out of people. And some senators, or one specifically, say that you can't write a check and fix this. Well, if that's the case, then why do we have this carve out? Why can some people have access to the courts for that and others not? So, when it comes down to these types of comments, who quite frankly, they just sound heartless to me. I think the biggest thing is the campaign donations. Follow the money. You can look it up online and you can see exactly how much they're getting and from who. And that's about all I've got for why someone would react that way.
I want to bring in Daryl Parrott again to the conversation and ask you about that, because there is this commentary sometimes about, money's not going to solve anything for these families. So, there's no real reason to overturn this because, that's not going to restore anybody's family member. And I just wonder what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The one side is talking about nothing but money. Malpractice, it's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us money. Our side is talking about justice. This is about money or people. And, the people are small. The money is big. The hospitals, the insurance companies, they're controlling all of this. They've been controlling it for 30 years. We might get a little tiny slice of power to hold them accountable. And all we're asking is what it says in the Statue of Liberty, or in the Pledge of Allegiance: liberty and justice for all. All. It doesn't say except Cameron or except Sabrina.
And I think,
I just want the same thing.
Yeah, and I think you noted at the hearing yesterday that for you, money is the least concern, that you have all the money.
It's got nothing to do with it. I just want to know why my son's dead. You can't bring him back. Nobody can. I got all the money I need. I need answers. I need truth. I need justice.
Right. Cindy, what was it like for you going to Tallahassee? I mean, you've referred to yourself to me previously as the class of 2023, basically the cohort of people who lost their lives in the calendar year after this was a proposal to overturn this law, after Sabrina was working towards overturning this law, and yet it continues and will continue unless doctors who have been involved in these cases of malpractice, I guess you would say, continue to practice.
Exactly. And while the physician that killed Sabrina's dad, was found guilty by the Department of Health, he was fined $7,500. These physicians make hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So I fully believe that even in her case, the Department of Health failed her. a $7,500 fine to a physician who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, who, by the way, is still practicing.
And as far as you know, the doctor in your daughter's case is also still practicing.
I know for a fact. So I was able to pay for a private autopsy. The autopsy prompted the medical examiner to change her cause of death. The cause sent by the hospital did not exist. I've also been able to do the whole pre-suit process that I've paid for on my own. I have a affidavit, which is a certification from an expert witness that the doctors fell below the standard of care. He specifically used the term reckless negligence, which, by the way, has been redefined in our state. Reckless negligence is usually an utter disregard for your patient's life through your actions that causes harm. In Florida, this has been redefined as the doctor intended to do harm. So these doctors, even if I had access to the court, would have to sit on the stand and say, we did this because we wanted Taylor to die.
Sabrina, what are the next steps for this bill right now? I mean, it's still in the committee process. There have been some proposals to implement caps on the kinds of damages if this were to pass, so that people perhaps could bring lawsuits, but their recovery would be limited. What are your thoughts about installing those caps and how that could affect the path of this legislation, whether it's successful or not?
Sure. So it's up in the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow at 8 a.m. And that's the last stop for the House before it goes to the full floor for a vote for all 120 House reps. The House bill cannot be amended. House Bill 6017 cannot be changed. And also, to my understanding, the House will not support caps as far as I know, as far as leadership goes. And so I have no doubt the House bill is going to go all the way with exactly how it is, with a clean repeal of subsection 8. As far as the Senate, it still has one committee to go through, the Rules Committee, who is chaired by the person who said that you can't write a check, for these types of things. It's not about money. So I'm not quite sure how the Senate will go. I know there's lots of discussions, that are being held behind closed doors regarding caps. When I started this fight, my fight was not ever for caps. It was to repeal subsection 8, and I refuse to be distracted, by any that topic. So I truly have no comment on that. Caps were ruled unconstitutional in Florida several years ago. I don't know how they would be ruled now, but it's not going to deter me from continuing to fight to end this law. That discussion is out of the advocates' control, in my opinion, because those are such bigger discussions that are being had that, like Cindy said in the beginning, that when we go there and we speak, it is not going to change their mind. Their minds are already made up. So I really don't know how it will move forward with or without them. I just hope that it can continue to move forward as a clean repeal.
And that chair that you're referring to, that's Senator Kathleen Passidomo?
It is.
Okay.
She is the chair of the Rules Committee.
All right. I want to just briefly take a call from Curtis on the north side. Curtis, good morning. Just briefly, if you can go ahead.
Good morning, Ann. Another great show. Thank you so much for airing this. My heart goes out to these families, and I agree with the gentleman what he just said. Liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate it. Michael emailed also. It says, just sounds like another example of we the people having our power diminished by those in power in an effort to protect the wealth of those of others with power. It is obviously a very difficult topic for those of you who've lost your family members, and I know that people on both sides truly do grieve for that, and we of course pass along our condolences. But thank you all so much for joining us today. Daryl Parrott, Cindy Jenkins, Sabrina Davis, appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you so much for having us.
Coming up next, recovering from a devastating explosion, a local food truck owner resumes her advocacy for healthy living. Welcome back. Well, a local food truck is back in business after a devastating explosion and fire 4 years ago. Here to tell us about returning to work and the mission of healthy living is the owner of My V Spot, Anna Coleman. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. You had a grand reopening of the food truck yesterday at the. Oh, no.
No.
I'm sorry. I thought I saw on your website or on your Instagram.
No, that was 2023, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So what's the event that is coming right now?
The Vegan Link is on Sunday, this
Okay.
Sunday, but the Vegan Link is something separate from My V Spot food truck. But
Okay. It's
yes.
an event that you're involved with.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry
yes.
for the confusion
No
there.
problem.
Well, so it's been then a year since you've been
Yes,
reopened.
reopened.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How is
Yes.
business?
Business is good.
Yeah.
I don't do it full time. I'm part time with it. But I love going out to different events. And then we also created our own events. So yeah.
Yeah.
it's nice.
So your journey to veganism began in 2017, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so was there a moment that triggered your decision to adopt that lifestyle?
Yes. I actually watched a documentary, What the Health, which is on Netflix. Pretty popular documentary, but that just kind of did it for me. I just made a connection with the animals,
Mm-hmm.
and from there, it's just like my lifestyle just changed.
There are usually a few pillars that, people make their decision based on, whether it's their own health, sometimes planetary health,
Mhm.
very often animal rights and
Mhm.
the protections of animal welfare.
Yes.
But do you find that there is a more common trigger among the people that are your customers, one than the other?
No, not really. And a lot of my customers are non-vegan. So,
Oh.
yeah.
They're just
So
coming for the food.
they're just coming for the food.
Okay.
They're trying to, open up, just be a little bit more cautious and health conscious, or they've heard about the food. So,
And you're
yeah,
self-taught as a chef?
self-taught.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
what are your inspirations? I mean, how do you come to some of because you've got an incredible menu.
Um, I just love just,
Food.
food, love for food, and the love for the food that I'm cooking, knowing that I'm not participating in, um, the harming of animals.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we should say that, we kind of referenced this incident that happened pretty soon after you launched the
Yes.
My V Spot business,
Yes.
or at least the truck portion of it. I mean, I guess you
Yes.
started catering in 2019, but you opened the truck in 2021?
Yes. May 1st was our grand opening at the Black Lives Matters. It was I think it was a 5K run, but we opened May 1st, 2021.
Yeah.
And
And you had
to
a couple of months, and then there
Yeah.
was this terrible accident. Can you tell us about what happened?
So, it was a gas explosion inside my trailer. I was the only one in there. We were not set up yet. We were at the Jacksonville Farmers Market on West Beaver, and I just I normally don't bother with. Uh-oh.
Losing your headphones there.
I know. I normally don't do anything when it comes to lighting pilots or anything. My husband's always done that, and he had to leave. So I just wanted to go ahead and start and not be late, and just go ahead and start setting up. And just wasn't very knowledgeable on that aspect of it. So um, there was no openings inside the trailer. The doors were not open, the windows were not open, and the gas was on.
Mm.
And not, being knowledgeable enough, knowing that I needed to have some type of opening so the gas can, escape, or have the hood vent on. So once I lit the fire, it was just, an explosion. So I was severely burned. The inside of the trailer was it was demolished. The outside of the trailer was fine, but the inside and myself, we were not fine. So I from there, went on a journey. I think it was about 19 months. Was in Gainesville for a while, and then
In their burn unit there?
yes, the burn unit, and then I had inpatient rehab and then outpatient rehab as well. So yeah, and then on March 18th of 2023 is when I reopened.
Okay.
I did the reopening.
How was your physical recovery? It must have been very difficult, and I would imagine just an extraordinarily painful experience.
Very painful. But through family, friends, and rehab, therapy. I never did therapy before until after my accident, and that helped out a lot as well. But just people, even the community, they were there for me. But it was, the people, mainly the people in therapy and rehab. So,
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we are talking to Anna Coleman. She is the owner of the My V Spot food truck.
Yeah.
It is a vegan food truck. It is around and about town, and it has been reopened now for about a year. If you have questions or comments, or you're curious about the vegan lifestyle or becoming vegan, or just more interested in her menu, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. So this incident happened at the Beaver Street Farmers Market, is that right?
yes.
And you have a regular space there?
Yes, we pop up there on Sundays. We used to be there a lot of Sunday, but we're not there because we kind of travel a lot now. So, but yes, we're out in the front in the parking lot, and we just pull up and people come.
And people who haven't been to the farmers market, it really is an extraordinary experience. And I think we can probably talk about that in just a little bit. We're going to take a short break,
Okay.
and we'll come back on the other side with Anna Coleman. And we'll be right back in just a minute.
Ascension St. Vincent's and WJCT present Healthy Hearts and New Starts, Understanding Cardiovascular Health and Weight Loss Surgery with Drs. Cunningham and Bailey, March 25th at WJCT Studios. Event is free, but registration is required at wjct.org/events.
Jack's Chamber, with 3,000 members in Northeast Florida, is dedicated to driving economic growth and ensuring everyone has the opportunity to succeed. Membership offers business leaders opportunities to connect with each other and with the community. More at jackschamber.com.
On the next Fresh Air, the promise and peril of artificial intelligence. Investigative reporter Gary Rivlin's new book tells the story of how AI was developed and how big tech firms are racing to build powerful systems with enormous potential for harm and profit. His book is AI Valley. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
Last month, President Trump purged top military leaders, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the chief of naval operations, and the Air Force vice chief of staff. Last week, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shut down the Pentagon office charged with preparing the military for future wars. We'll look at the sweeping changes the Trump administration seeks to make to the U.S. Armed Services. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11, here on WJCT News 89.9.
More than 70 million Americans depend on Social Security. President Trump says he doesn't plan to touch the program, but he's also claimed with no evidence that the Social Security Administration is rife with fraud. What is the future for this nearly 90-year-old program? That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, I am joined, as I have been, by Anna Coleman. She's the owner of the My V-Spot food truck, which is a vegan enterprise that has been in business since 2019. She is going to be, however, heading up an event that is coming up at Myrtle Avenue Brewing Company. Tell us a little bit about what Vegan Link is and what the inspiration was for the event.
So the Vegan Link is a all vegan pop-up event created by myself and my partner Drew out of Gainesville. He's the owner and chef of Vegan Gator Food Truck. So we just came together, both Sharon and I, our love and compassion for animals and giving back to the community. We have vegan and non-vegan, vegan and vegan-friendly vendors that come and they sell their food or whatever they're making, their products. And we have raffles. We have live music. We have, this Sunday, we'll have a special treat. We have peaceful meditation and a sound bath by Davi with Figure 8 Energy. So she'll be there. And we have live music sometimes. And attendees is free to attend. We have raffles, no purchase necessary to join the raffles. And it's just mainly about educating people about veganism and just being open to, eating healthier options or alternative options.
And what kind of vendors come to the pop-up event?
So we have makers, we have plant vendors, we have food vendors, we have candle vendors, we have crafts, arts, so like a normal pop-up, but everything is either vegan friendly or vegan.
Yeah, and so that's this Sunday. How have you seen, since you got into the business, how have you seen Jacksonville's food landscape change?
Um, well, last year was kind of tough for a lot of businesses, especially vegan, because we're so small. The community is so small.
Why, especially last year?
I don't know. It's just like there've been a lot of closures, a lot of struggling, and I don't know if it's because of the economy, but we or maybe not enough support. So that is very important for people to come out and support small and local businesses.
Yeah. And so are you, you've got a pretty strong Instagram presence.
Yes.
How do people find you when you're moving around? Do they come to you to the Beaver Street Farmers Market looking for you, or do they try to track you as you're rolling around town?
A little bit of both, but I also have a website, and I put my schedule on the website, and then on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not as active on Facebook as I probably should be. Instagram is where you will definitely find like real time schedules and posts, and then we also have a Vegan Link Instagram page as well.
And some of the, you were talking about, there's raffles, there's kind of other events at the pop-up, but there is a benefit to animal welfare
Yes.
causes. Can you tell us a little bit about where that money ends up?
So a portion of the vendor fees that we collect, we donate to animal farm sanctuaries. Gainesville has a cow sanctuary where it's actually the largest cow sanctuary in the U.S. It's called Critter Creek Farm Sanctuary, and we've partnered with them, and we donate to the half of our vendor fees to that sanctuary. And then when we travel to other different locations, we partner with other farm sanctuaries in the area, and we donate monies to them as well.
And so obviously one big draw is the food, and your menu is really, well, it's delicious to look over, right? So there a couple of the favorite things, though, are your mac and cheese. Can you sort of describe, because
Yes.
that's something a lot of people don't really just associate with
Yes.
vegan options, because cheese has always been kind of like a really difficult
Mm-hmm.
thing.
And it's it's kind of hard to mimic dairy when it comes to mac and cheese. So I was very adamant that I was going to make a mac and cheese that was just really good, that you really couldn't tell the difference, and that's what happened. So over time it has evolved, but it's called the Slappin' Mac, and everybody raves about it. That's the most popular menu item. And then I also have a signature rice and quinoa dish called the My V Spot Spicy Broccoli and Mushroom Rice Bowl. And then we also have it in quinoa as well. Those are very popular.
And that's something that I guess benefits from, there's been a real advancement in sort of fake, I guess, meats, you call them. Like there's this Italian sausage that you use.
Yes, I use the Beyond Meat hot Italian sausages in that dish. And I don't use too many mock meats, I guess you would call them, in my dishes, but I do like the Beyond Meat products. I don't have any soy. I don't have any soy dishes on my menu at all. I use. I try to keep vegetables in most of my dishes, but we all love mac.
Yeah,
So
right.
so,
Well, the vegan link is this Sunday at 2 o'clock at Myrtle Avenue Brewing, and you can find more information at myvspotrestaurant.com. Is that right?
yes. And then also on Instagram, myvspot_, and the vegan link FL on Instagram as well.
All right. Anna Coleman, glad that you're back in business and have fully recovered. It's really nice to talk to you.
Thank you for having me, Ann.
All right. And thank you for listening. That's our program. If you have questions or comments, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org or reach out on social media. Please join us tomorrow. We're going to be talking about an effort to crack down on newspapers and their publishing.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
Hi, it's Tom Hudson, host of the Florida Roundup on Fridays at noon, and we have a special edition soon. We'll be live in Jacksonville on April 4th. We'd love to have you there. It's free and lunch is